The institution of the Ombudsman occupies a unique place within modern governance. It's neither executive, nor legislative, nor judicial, and yet in many respects it touches upon all three. Typically appointed by Parliament, often with executive involvement in the nomination process, the Ombudsman, also known as the Commissioner for Human Rights or Public Defender of Rights, is expected to function as an independent state authority. Its mandate is broad: to protect constitutional rights, challenge unlawful actions by public bodies, and monitor places of detention, amongst many other important responsibilities and functions. And yet, the history of Ombudsman institutions is not only a story of accountability, it's also a reminder that exposing a problem is not the same as resolving it. You're watching A Context. I'm Okan Amashov here. Joining me now in the studio is the Public Defender of Rights of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Robert Dobrovolsky. Welcome to Azerbaijan, sir. Welcome to AnewZ. Welcome to Context.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much. It's not your first time that you're here in Azerbaijan. You visited this country for the purpose of attending conferences, but this visit is different. You met a number of important, relevant Azerbaijani public officials. Before talking about the institution itself, the challenges this institution is facing and its major priorities, I would like to specifically ask about your visit to Azerbaijan. What brings you here and what are your major takeaways?
Yeah, as you have mentioned, I'm the third time in Azerbaijan. I was invited by the Sabina Alieva, the Ombudswoman of Azerbaijan, when organized the summit, because Sabina Alieva, she organized yearly meeting of the ombuds institutions in Baku, and it creates very good platform for the exchange, because each nation has the same problem, more than less the same. We're facing the same human rights problem, and I say this is very important that we have the dialogue and we can have the comparative talks to solve this problem. So it means I don't need to create the original Slovak solution to this problem. We can have talks with my distinguished colleagues from the different countries. But this year visit is the bilateral meeting. So me and my two colleagues, we are attending. We met, for example, the president of the Constitutional Court, which is very pivotal organ in the system of the check and balances in each countries. So we met the head of the committee of the Parliament of Azerbaijan, which is responsible for the human rights, and also we visited some places where the people are detained.
Before asking about your major takeaways and the comparative analysis of the system existing here with the system existing in Slovakia, specifically about the terminology, as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, both in Azerbaijan and Slovakia, this institution of the Ombudsman was created back in 2001. In Azerbaijan, it's called Commissioner for Human Rights, and in Slovakia, the Public Defender of Rights. Of course, naturally, the Ombudsman is a universal terminology, but it's quite often said that when you create an institution and give it a particular name, it does reveal your strategic intent. Is it applicable to this particular case?
I say it is not important what is the notion of the institution. Yeah. Very important is how much power is transferred to that institution in the check and balances system. This is what the Montesquieu and the John Locke, the philosopher, were saying. It is very important to split the power, not that one person, one party is going to hold the power. And when I compare the position of the Commissioner of the Human Rights in Azerbaijan and the position of the Public Defender of the Fundamental Rights, it is very important that both our institutions are stipulated by the force of Constitution. It means that it won't be easy for the majority to change the Constitution, because our work very much connects and can create the tensions between the Ombudsman office and the executive power. And it is okay, because once you protect fundamental rights of the citizens, this is what the governments don't like. But if they don't like us, they cannot remove us from our offices, because we are protected by the Constitution. Second similarities between me and my distinguished colleague Sabina Alieva is that in case that we see that the government tries to lower the fundamental rights by adopting the new law, we can challenge this law before the Constitutional Court. So the Slovak Constitution gives me this authority, also the Constitution of Azerbaijan. So it means Sabina Alieva and Robert Dobrovolsky, we are strongly standing behind the people. For example, my colleagues from the Western European countries, like Czech colleague, Austrian colleague, they cannot challenge the law before the Constitutional Court. And in Slovakia, for example, only last year I challenged the 4 laws and we succeeded. All of these laws were declared as unconstitutional. When I met the Mr. President of the Constitutional Court, he informed me that Sabina Alieva has initiated 35 procedures. So it means, it shows that the position of Sabina Alieva is constitutionally protected and she's not restricted in her operation.
Thank you very much indeed. In terms of the independence enjoyed by the institution of the Ombudsman, in Azerbaijan, I believe president, executive body, branch of the state is making a proposition, proposing candidates to the parliament, and those candidates are one of them being elected by the parliament. So effectively, Ombudsman acts as a state official, but independent of the rest of the state machinery. But there's also a massive question about financial independence, for example. What is the relationship between the Minister of Finance and Ombudsman? To what extent there could be budgetary restrictions? To what extent do you think in Azerbaijan and Slovakia, the holders of this particular office are capable of being truly independent, not worrying about their budgets, not worrying about their future in terms of the maintenance of the institution? Because money is incredibly important part of the operation.
Yes, of course, because budgetary freedom is the space for you to be free by protecting the people. It doesn't mean that my salary is not going to be cut. The very important is that I can hire good experts. I can hire the colleagues which are expert in the concrete types of the fundamental rights. And this makes your institution strong, because you can hire from the market the best lawyers to protect the fundamental rights. For example, one of the things I really like in the Azerbaijan, I have been informed today that the office of the Sabina Alieva, there is a law which protects her financial independence, which prohibits Ministry of Finance or the government to cut her budget. For example, this is not case of Slovakia, and there are the Paris Principles of United Nations, which prescribes that each state should guarantee the budgetary independence. So, for example, in Slovakia, it can happen very easily that the Ministry of Finance decides that they will cut the number of the money which are devoted to the salaries. This cannot happen in Azerbaijan. So this is what I will take away to Bratislava, and I will indicate to the Azerbaijanis model of independence of the office of the Sabina Alieva.
It's one of the things you have seen here as worthy of taking back to Slovakia. So one of your major takeaways, basically, on the basis of your meetings here. One more question. Quite often it is said that institution of Ombudsman is perfectly conducive for the purpose of uncovering problems, sort of revealing systemic failures? For example, in the UK a couple of years ago, there was a very famous case involving equitable life pension scandal, where the parliamentary ombudsman revealed a couple of problems, systemic, and that changed the debate, although the ombudsman himself was not able to make practical change, but by means of bringing that issue to the forefront, debate has started, and there have been implications. In Azerbaijan, for example, the office of Sabina Aliyeva, the Commissioner for Human Rights, over the past couple of years, systematically documented and reported about the situation in the formerly occupied territories of Azerbaijan, about the mining issue, the clearance of mines and so forth. And those reports have been incredibly influential in shaping public debate. Are there comparable examples in the context of your country wherein reports change the debate in the country, producing results?
Yeah. The office of Sabina Aliyeva and the office of the Slovak Ombudsman doesn't mean that our decisions are binding. Yeah. We are not judicial, we don't act and operate as a judicial organ. But when I see the reaction of the politicians is stronger because we work with the soft power. It means we just give recommendations, and if they don't respect our recommendations, all we can do to make media awareness of this problem, blame and shame by the media. And the politicians in the Slovakia, they don't like to be blamed and shamed by the media. Therefore, I see that they are very cooperative because I give them the chance. Please, Mr. Minister, change this systematic problem, introduce the improvement. Otherwise, I will turn to the media, and you know this media can influence the decisions of the voters in the future. So this is what we can do. And for example, in Slovakia, I would say that 70% of our recommendations are reflected on voluntary basis. So the ministries are trying to understand what is behind our analysis, because we have better contact to the human beings on the street. You know, the members of parliament, they don't go on the street, but we get every day complaints. For example, Sabina Aliyeva, she has the 4 regional branches. This is, I'm jealous. For example, me in Slovakia, my headquarters, my office seat is in Bratislava. But I wish in the future to have also the regional branches. Sabina Aliyeva is going to open the 5th regional branch in Nakhchivan. So that's my dream, to have also the regional branches to be closer to the people. So it means that, for example, we are closer to the people, and when we see that there are lots of cases which are connected to some problem in healthcare, social rights, problems of the detained persons, we can sum it up and we can make the recommendations and bring it into the account, into the consideration of the members of parliament, saying please change the law, or we go to the ministries, please change the behavior of the police, please introduce some new policy in that field. So we are sometimes more efficient than the ministries.
What has been the most palpable and noteworthy example of your institution defeating the government in a practical sense?
So, for example, as I mentioned, Slovak government has adopted the foreign agents law. And you know, this foreign agents law has been adopted in other countries. For example, I don't go far, our Georgian neighbors in Georgia, there has been adopted the law, it's called foreign agents law, which says that each donor, if you give some money to the NGO, needs to disclose the identity. And last year, when Sabina Aliyeva organized the summit, I met my distinguished colleague Levan, which is the Georgian ombudsman, and I asked him, Levan, what about your Georgian law? Because Slovak government found the inspiration and has adopted this law, and he gave me some know-how. I visited him in Tbilisi with my team, and based on his knowledges, we could challenge this law in the Constitutional Court, and we won. Constitutional Court recently decided that this law violates the rights of the privacy, rights of the association, and it contradicts to the EU law. Because, for example, Hungary has adopted very similar law, and Hungary lost the case in the Luxembourg, in the Court of the Justice.
European Court of Justice, ECJ
Yes.
Court. Yes, one question about EU. And recently there was a sort of a scandal involving one of the European commissioners, I think. European EU Ombudsman challenged, brought forward the case related to commissioners going to private sector. And then that was a big, massive case. But in terms of its implementation, it was resisted by the Commission. I mean, Slovakia is a member of the European Union, of course. What is your evaluation of that particular case? But that's not a national case, it's a pan-European case. Do you think EU is doing its job properly in that context as well?
I would say that my colleague in the Brussels, EU Ombudsman, she made really great job, because I guess you mean the case of the contract between Pfizer and the European Commission, which were totally blacked. No? The people has not access to the informations. Yeah, that's really very good that we can protect their access to the information. I will give you the case, recent case from the Slovakia. Also, Slovak government has adopted the amendment of the Free Information Act. Slovakia was the best example of the whole world for the open governments. Our Slovak Free Information Act make it possible for each human being on the territory of Slovakia to have access, quick access, direct access to the public data. The government introduced new hindrance, saying, a new obstacle, saying that you need to pay for the information, but there was vague paragraph which does not give you legal certainty how much you will pay for this information. So it completely destroyed the principle that once the state authority has created the information, it should be provided for free. And I was warning government and the parliament, please, it thus contradicts to the fundamental rights in the Constitution, freedom of the information. And thanks God, the Constitutional Court decided based on our claim as unconstitutional.
Thank you very much indeed. Ombudsman, so grateful to you for your time. It was a fascinating discussion, and I'm very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, the institution of the Ombudsman is, of course, Nordic origin. Has now been with us for more than 2 centuries, since early 19th century. And it's not merely about receiving complaints, as we understand, not only about acting upon them, it's also about initiative, influence, and ultimately the capacity to shape societal change. You've been watching Context, and see you very soon indeed.